name's Sharon Finney. I'm a senior commissioning manager for a small clinical commissioning group in the West Midlands. I am going to talk to you for the next few minutes about commissioning in the NHS, and I hope to be able to give you some tips to help you to engage successfully with your own commissioners and or NHS providers. A couple of years ago, NHS England estimated that the NHS would have a deficit of 30 billion by the year 2020. They have a savings plan in place that will close this gap by 22 billion, and this government promised to inject a further 8 billion to close this gap completely. But this was all made on some assumptions. Firstly, that the predictive modelling that used to calculate that deficit was correct. And secondly, that all financial recovery plans will deliver 100% of their planned efficiency savings. Okay, so where are we now? Well, we're not doing too well, really. A&E performance has declined quite markedly. And in last winter, performance against the national 4-hour wait standard fell. 20% of patients waited for more than 4 hours to be seen in an A&E department. Attendances and admissions both increased. And in recent years, summer performance has dropped below the 95% threshold. Now, this is unusual, and certainly for our CCG, we've noticed this. And over the summer months, when we usually see performance improving, that stands us in good stead going into winter. And then for the whole year, we are sometimes able to meet the target or as near to as we possibly can. We're not in a good place this winter. All through the summer months, we've failed to meet that standard. The good news is the number of general and acute beds has stayed broadly flat. So we have the same number of beds, and hospitals have reduced length of stay by around 5%, so we're getting people out much more quickly. However, emergency admissions have increased by 20%, and the average number of delayed transfers of care has increased to, in 2015, 14% higher than the previous winter. Just to let you know what a delayed transfers of care is, when a patient's ready to go home, they're in acute hospital, ready to go home, but their discharge is delayed for one reason or another, and they're split by reasons of NHS reasons or social care reasons. And detox are attributable to social care have risen by 44% over the past 2 years. And the shift in balance we're noticing now, that more of the delays are down to social care or gaps in social care provision, supporting usually the elderly when they're ready to go home. It's important to note that local authorities, who are the commissioners for social care, have had their budgets cut. But it's important to note that the lack of available beds in hospital actually slows the flow of patients through the emergency department, through the system, through the hospital system, and in turn this impacts on A&E performance. So what do we have? The Commissioner's challenge is to commission high quality care for the current population plus the increasing number of elderly people within a budget that doesn't match the trend in demand. So it's a bit of a tall order, really. So how do we do this? And there is a methodology, and it's called QUIP, and it stands for Quality, Innovation, Prevention and Productivity. And in theory, if you focus on quality and delivering quality services, and you're innovative in the way you do this, with a focus on prevention, you will be more productive and you'll save money. And I've drawn this little map here that's not to scale, but it's just to demonstrate that the increase in demand, the green line, and you can see the Commissioner budget doesn't match that demand, and the QUIP is the gap in between. So commissioners have to close that by being innovative, saving money, and able to deliver services going forward. And you can see that QUIP was introduced in 2010, and it was really easy to make savings and close that gap then. But as the years go on, it gets more and more difficult because you do your easy wins first. So we have to be more and more innovative now, and the gap is increasing as well. But that diagram, this is the same diagram. That diagram was assuming a steady state. But as I talked about in an earlier slide, delayed transfers of care down to social care is also impacting on health. And what I wanted to demonstrate here is there's a gap, a further gap, when local authorities decommission social care, and that impacts on health. So commissioners have to then use their budgets to close that gap in social care to enable patients to get out of hospital and go home. Using the same line, in 2010, I want to demonstrate here that it was really easy to close that gap, and we would have, we'd make investments in 1 year and be happy to see the savings return the following year or 2 or 3 years down the line. But as we've moved on, we're unable to do that now, and you can see that in 2012-13 we start to buy services from cheaper NHS providers who can provide the same or similar services for less money. And we have a policy called limited procedures of clinical value. And really, that's kind of decommissioning, really. It's trimming services around the edges. So we reduce the criteria, so it's more and more difficult for patients to get that care. The criteria is a lot more strict. We're renegotiating local tariffs and block contracts. So we look at what we're currently paying for. And if we have a locally agreed tariff, we're looking to reduce that. And actually now we're in the realms of decommissioning now, and that's prioritisation, and that's looking at all the services. And if we have to, and I have to stress that I don't know anyone who's comfortable with this, and we're delaying it as much as we possibly can because nobody's comfortable in decommissioning. I think if ever there's a time to be innovative in the NHS, now is the time. But we need to think big. NHS England are clear that we don't want any more sticking plasters, their term. Small things, sporadic little schemes. We need to think big, and I think share our ideas. We don't do that very well in the NHS, and I think we have lessons to learn from the private sector who innovate really well. And understanding the benefits and the risks for commissioners and providers is a good tip, really. These are the considerations for providers. The benefits of an innovative scheme for them is, we all agree that treating people more efficiently and effectively equals better outcomes for patients. We all want that, commissioners and providers. For providers, reducing overheads saves money. So if we provide a service that allows them to close beds and then close a ward, and even more so a building, that's money saved for the provider. An improved efficiency avoids contractual penalties. Providers get fined for breaching the constitutional standards. So that improvement in efficiency helps them. But the risks, reduced activity, an innovation that actually reduces that activity also reduces the income for the provider. There's another thing we've commissioned sometimes with the provider services in the community, and one of the problems for them is who owns the clinical governance and the clinical risk. Commissioner considerations. The benefits for commissioners are, again, treating people more efficiently and effectively. It's the right thing to do. That's what we all want, better outcomes for patients. But reducing activity is a saving for commissioners. It's income from a provider, but it's a saving for commissioners. Innovative solutions, though, can attract additional funding from elsewhere, and commissioners are always interested in this. Locally, we talk about a balloon effect, and this is a risk. So if you decommission a service in one area of the system, those people usually turn up somewhere else in the system. So if you have a half-deflated balloon, you squeeze it and the air pops up somewhere else. It's a little bit like that in commissioning, and that's okay as long as you understand where that activity is going to pop up and that you have the resources available to support that. The problem for commissioners at the moment with being innovative is we have to demonstrate in-year savings. So we can't invest to save anymore. We can't invest this year to make savings next year. We have to see the return this year. The pressure's really on. Just a few tips in summary. I think it's really important to implement an innovative service, understand your CCG's priorities, and how can you help them? And bearing in mind the providers as well, those risks and benefits for both the commissioners and providers that sometimes don't align. Be clear about the risks and benefits. Engaging with your CCG, think about engaging through your patient board and your GPs. Research other funding opportunities. If you go along with an idea and the funding to back it, you're more likely to get their support. Be clear and transparent with measurable key performance indicators. Think big and share your learning and success with others. I just want to leave you with this. A quote from Victor Hugo: "There is only one thing stronger than all the armies of the world, and that is an idea whose time has come." Thank you for listening.